Dr. Joshua Reischer, HealthNote, founder and CEO, and it specializes in automated clinical note writing, healthnote.com.
Hello, thank you. So good evening, everyone. Thanks, Innovator MD, for having us here. My name is Joshua Reischer. I'm an internal medicine physician, and I was practicing up until about 2 years ago when I started HealthNote. I loved seeing patients, but I'm sure many of you here can relate. I hated collecting, organizing, and documenting data. And so that's really what we focus on. So HealthNote creates patient-generated clinical-grade health records, which we believe is the first step towards intelligent healthcare automation. So if you think about the last time you've been to the doctor's office, someone usually hands you a clipboard, a kiosk, or maybe even a portal. We ask patients to fill out the same information every single time they come in. And what is the first thing the doctor says when you actually see the patient? What brings you in today? Because you didn't actually read any of that information. Most of it was irrelevant. So this is happening with over 1 billion outpatient visits a year. In the US, we're spending over $700 billion a year on physician and clinical services. And we're spending about 30% of our time as physicians performing these administrative tasks. So from a provider perspective, we're filling out all of these gray and white boxes. This is not some 1990s Windows screen. This is a top 10 EMR, and they basically all look just like this. So patient visits create a huge amount of data, and physicians are overwhelmed, resulting in multiple unintended downstream effects like expensive care, misdiagnosis, inaccurate billing and coding, cumbersome care navigation, and of course, patient frustration and physician burnout. Over almost 600 million hours a year is spent by providers collecting, documenting, and organizing their data. So a little bit about myself. I was an internal medicine physician at Iora Health. I was spending hours every single day, again, collecting, documenting, and organizing my data. I met my co-founder, Aaron, at Y Combinator Startup School. He was a serial entrepreneur. We became friends, stayed friends for about a year, and I told Aaron about my frustrations, and he said, you know, I've been working on this AI actionable information platform, and I think I can help you. And the first thing I said was, I'm not sure how that's going to help my 80-year-old patients who I'm about to see. So didn't quite believe it just yet. Showed me another iteration of it, and I said, this is great. And about 30 days later, we had our first customer, and that was about 1.5 years ago. So our mission is to empower patients to partake in their own health records and enable more accurate diagnosis and treatment, higher efficiency of care, better experience, so that way our providers have up-to-date, clinical-grade, patient-generated health records at the right place and time. So how do we actually do all this? So we send a text message to patients before their visit. We read from the electronic medical record system. We know who's coming in. We know why they're coming in, whether it's a first-time visit, a follow-up visit, a pre-surgical, a post-surgical visit, et cetera. We distill that information that we're collecting from the patients, and we create usable notes and data sets. So we ask the questions that a physician would normally ask, and we write the note that a doctor would normally write. So if you have a headache, we're gonna ask you scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? What makes it better? What makes it worse? What medications have you been on? Et cetera, et cetera. And we deeply integrate all of that information into the EMR. So this is not just a PDF, we're filling out all of those gray and white boxes. So we make sure that there's really no change in workflow. We've also spent a lot of time making sure that this is extremely easy for anyone to use. There's no app to download, there's no sign-in process, there's large font, contrasting colors, and we've tested it with now tens of thousands of patients above the age of 75. So HealthNote connects the dots for physicians before a patient visit, advising and enabling better patient care. So our algorithms do not replace doctors, we just help them make them better. So if you think about it like this, if a patient comes in and they're complaining of rash, fever, and aches, as a provider, we're thinking, okay, is this infectious? Is it a malignancy? Is it autoimmune? And we're gonna ask questions for 10 or 20 minutes and try to figure out what's going on. But if we ask all these questions ahead of time, we can figure out what's going on. And it turns out that this patient went hiking in Connecticut and that it was an atypical rash for Lyme disease. And in less than 5 minutes, you have a much better understanding of what's going on with a patient, and you ask more questions than you may have normally asked. So we believe that quality data affects lives. So having better data upfront helps increase accuracy for billing and coding, data diagnosis. helps improve treatment, patient admin satisfaction, and referral processes, and overall helps decrease cost, misdiagnosis, and wait times. And one of my personal favorites is helping physician burnout. From a competitive landscape position, HealthNote creates usable notes, enabling effective distillation of clinical data at the points of care. So if you compare HealthNote to the EMR itself, traditional patient check-in software, triage and support bots, dictation and voice, essentially HealthNote asks all the questions that a physician would normally ask and then helps actually write that note and put it straight into the EMR. We charge per provider per month for single specialty groups. For larger multi-specialty groups like hospitals, we have volume-based pricing. We're working with top health organizations around the country. We're now in 50+ locations. We have zero churn, meaning every single customer who's ever worked with us is still working with us, and any pilot that we've done in the past has become a contract. Last year, we saw about 20,000 patient visits. To date, now we've seen over 100,000, and we're on track to see over 500,000 in 2020 alone. We're finding that we have an over 80% prior to arrival engagement. That means that patients are tapping our link, opening up the platform and actually answering these questions, and 100% prior to the doctor visit. So what that means is HealthNote becomes part of the workflow. You don't see the doctor unless you fill this out. We're finding that 40% less check-in staff are needed, and there's a 50% reduction in physician note and administration time. So right now, we're actually focused on the non-hospital affiliated physicians. We do have a few hospital affiliated groups on board, but our go-to-market strategy is really focusing on the other groups. Right now, we're finding that there's no better time than now. COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of change. There's an unprecedented need to automate, lower admin costs, increase access for patients, and of course, enable virtual care. So CMS has new payment models requiring better patient communication and data to optimize outcomes for value-based care. And of course, the deep EMR integration that we do now was not even possible 2 or 3 years ago. So to make all this happen, we've got a great team of clinicians, engineers, and designers. There's several more folks on our team who are not here. And I'll leave it at that and see if there's any questions.